Hello, I'm Tael, and welcome to the final Tael Talks for 2014. It's been a big year for Tattletale Gaming, and the channel has been slowly growing, and I would just like to, before I get into this video, thank everybody who has subscribed and supported this channel. But for now, let's get into the last game for 2014, which is, of course, as the title says, Donkey Kong Land 3, the last game in the Donkey Kong Land series. So Donkey Kong Land was obviously the Game Boy version of Donkey Kong Country 3. It wasn't necessarily a port once again like the others, it was its own thing, but it was very much in the vein of Donkey Kong Country 3. And it was released in 1997 for the original Game Boy. And interestingly, it also got a Game Boy Color release in Japan in 2000. Which was really strange, and it's a version of the game that I would really like to hunt down and give its own special video to see how different it is. Unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot to talk about with Donkey Kong Land 3. It's really not all that exciting, but I will give you a bit of a rundown just because I did do the other two games in the series and it feels appropriate to finish them off. Once again, it's built on the Donkey Kong Country engine, the port to the Game Boy, just like the other two games were. And it feels almost identical to Donkey Kong Land 2, aside from the lack of Diddy Kong in there, obviously. But in terms of control and performance, it's pretty much identical to Donkey Kong Land 2. I didn't really go into detail about the way Dixie Kong handles in Donkey Kong Land 2. She's obviously very different to Donkey or Diddy from the original with her ability to hover. In this game, of course, she handles pretty much exactly the same as she did in the last one, but the level design doesn't seem to take as much advantage of her ability to hover as the previous game, which kind of makes her feel superfluous. I don't really know that her presence in the game actually does anything to enhance it, unlike the previous game where her ability to hover led to a lot of interesting level design. And I think that's a bit of a shame and a bit of a missed opportunity. Of course, it wouldn't be a Donkey Kong game if I wasn't talking about the visuals and the audio of the game, as that's what most people remember them for. And it does a good job of replicating the Super Nintendo game for the most part. Once again, just like Donkey Kong Land 2, it does tone down the backgrounds quite a bit, so the characters don't get lost like they did in the original Donkey Kong Land, although there is one particular level which is a bit of a forest and there's a lot of zip lines, and it is quite easy to lose your characters in that stage, but aside from that one stage, it does a good job of toning things down. In fact, I would say that actually tones things down a little bit too much. There's quite a few levels where the background is completely non-existent and actually makes the game quite boring to look at. And I think that's a bit of a shame, and I don't know if that's because of time reasons or they just didn't care at this point, because the 1997 the Game Boy Color was on the way. I believe it came out in 1998, so maybe they were just trying to get it out. I don't really know, but it doesn't look as good as the previous game. Likewise with the sound, all of the tracks from Donkey Kong Country 3 are pretty much represented. I think there's one or two missing, and they're decent versions of the tracks from Donkey Kong Country 3, but Donkey Kong Country 3's soundtrack is probably the weakest of the trilogy, and that comes through the Game Boy one as well, obviously. So when you got lesser versions of already less inspired tracks, it doesn't quite have that same sort of impact that the previous games had. I do really like the music in the Woodmills, but aside from that, the music just doesn't do a whole lot for me. One of the big contentious things in Donkey Kong Country 3 was the inclusion of Ellie instead of Rambi. Everybody loves Rambi the Rhino. He's one of those iconic Donkey Kong Country characters and elements, and he's completely absent from this game and instead replaced with Ellie the Elephant, which is the name of an elephant in quite a few different things actually, for obvious reasons. But in the Super Nintendo game, in order to use Ellie, you needed to go, in order to shoot water, you needed to go up to like waterfalls and things and actually suck up water in order to shoot that out as a projectile. And in Donkey Kong Land 3 they skipped that entirely. In fact, a lot of those gimmicks from Donkey Kong Country 3, which had a ton of interesting level design gimmicks, are completely absent in this game, and it kind of makes the level design feel really boring. And even a character like Ellie, who, while obviously not as classic as Rambi, is in a lot of ways more interesting to play with in terms of diversity, it comes across as a little bit less interesting because of how straightforward it is, and that's probably due to the limitations of the hardware, but I don't know that for sure. And you notice a trend with this video that I don't really have a lot of positive things to say about Donkey Kong Land 3. It's just something about it, like something's missing. Once again, in order to save, you need to go to a wrinkly save cave, so if once again you're playing on your Game Boy and your batteries are getting low, or you have to stop playing for one reason or another, if you haven't got up to a save cave, you're losing all that data from before your last save, which is a system that I hate. I hate it in Donkey Kong Land 2 and hated it in the country games. It's an issue here once again. Something else that's interesting is Wrinkly is the only character that actually makes a return from the previous games. Cranky Kong and Funky Kong are completely absent from this game despite being in the Super Nintendo ones. That's just another indication that the game was stripped back quite a bit. Once again, the engine, it's starting to show its age at this point. Even though the backgrounds have been toned down even further, there's still a lot of glitching out with the character sprites with stray pixels and things popping out everywhere, which is quite odd at this point in the game's life. I guess the game's biggest force is actually very, very easy. You can easily sit through this and 101% it in one afternoon in 3 or 4 hours, which is unlike the other games, which are quite more difficult to do that with. But in the end, I don't really have a whole lot more to say about Donkey Kong Land 3. Like, once again, it's not a bad game and it is fun to play, but it's just uninteresting with a very bland level design, with a bland look, and Donkey Kong Country 3 was a very tired-feeling game on the Super Nintendo, but it was still enjoyable and it was still very polished, whereas Donkey Kong Land 3 just feels a little... it's like something's missing. The heart's missing from it. Is it a game that I recommend? Not particularly. I mean, if you have the option to play the Donkey Kong Country games instead of the land games at any point, you should always pick the country games, but this game is now available on the 3DS, in Europe at least, and I really can't recommend it. That said, I might feel differently about the Game Boy Color version. I don't know a whole lot about it other than it's in color. Maybe it has extra features. So when I do manage to get a copy, I'll be sure to do a video on it just to let people know about the differences and if it's actually worth it. But for the most part, Donkey Kong Land 3 is a completely passable game, but something that you don't really need to play, and there's no reason to play at this point. Donkey Kong Land 3 is a game that I did play as a kid. I borrowed it from kids at school, and I remember actually asking my grandmother for it, and then changing my mind at the last minute and got her to buy me the Jurassic Park The Lost World video game for the Game Boy, which I don't know that was much better actually, to be completely honest. But I don't regret not getting Donkey Kong Land 3 as a kid. But what about you? Do you have any memories of Donkey Kong Land 3? Is it your most favorite in the series? Is it your least favorite in the series? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe, as it really helps me and helps me make these videos for you, for those of you who are interested. Thank you again for a great year. It's been a big year for me in a lot of ways, and I'm glad to be getting these videos out once a week. So thank you again for your support, and thank you for sticking by me. And thank you again for listening to Tael Talks. I'm Tael, and I will see you with an all-new game next year. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.